Welcome to Dearborn Blog Live Discussions, the podcast where we explore the ideas and movements shaping our communities and the world at large. I'm your host, Wissam Sharafuddin, and today we're diving into the cornerstone of American democracy, petitioning, a tool that has empowered citizens to make their voices heard, challenge injustices, and bring about real change. Throughout history, petitioning has played a pivotal role in shaping America. In the 19th century, petitions against slavery flooded Congress, sparking debates that ultimately led to the abolition of slavery. The women's suffrage movement rallied heavily on petition drives to pressure lawmakers, culminating in the passage of the 19th Amendment. More recently, the petition to legalize same sex marriage helped mobilize public opinion and contributed to the landmark Supreme Court ruling in 2015. Petitioning is democracy in action, grassroots voices demanding accountability from those in power. To help us unpack the power of petitioning and its effects in modern America, I'm thrilled to welcome Douglas Marsh, Green Party candidate for the U.S. Senate in 2024. Douglas is a community journalist based in West Branch, Michigan, whose work centers on amplifying the voices of everyday people. Beyond his journalism, he's a dedicated first responder, a passionate volunteer, and a family man. He and his spouse are raising an incredible child who will be celebrating their 8th birthday next month. Happy birthday. Douglas, thank you for joining us. With your experience as a journalist, a community advocate, and a political candidate, I know you'll bring a unique perspective to this discussion. Let's dive in about petitioning.
Wissam, thanks so much for having me. Petitions. Wissam, can you recall the last time you signed a petition?
I can't recall. I mean, there are people who stand outside with petitions for me to sign, and I usually offer my signature if it meets my consent. But this has happened so many times, I can't remember the last time I've signed a petition.
Right. You can go to the first. You can change to the first slide if you like, and we can just say.
How about you? Do you remember the last petition you signed?
Yeah, I signed one today. That Palestinian journalist who was arrested in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. There was a very quick petition response, I think through change.org or one of those petition websites. So I actually just signed a petition today. But I think it's worthwhile to really examine closely. I think that's at one particular spectrum, one side of the spectrum for petitions. It's an event that happened in Switzerland, and it triggered a global response. And I think so we've got a global response kind of petition, and then it ranges all the way to a very granular and local kind of petitioning. And so I don't know, a lot of times when people think of petitions, I think they imagine, oh, that's like that email I got, or that's that Facebook post I saw about things happening out in the great wide world, and somebody must come up with that stuff, and maybe I can join in. But what I really want to do is explore petitions more fully and empower people to organize petitions for the issues that they face in their own communities, and to look at petitions as an organizing tool in themselves. So that'll be kind of the basic idea of the talk that we're having today. Mm-hmm. So to me, kind of maybe the most granular and most local is where I'd like to start. So if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about qualifying a candidate for a local office, such as a city council, a planning commission, a board of trustees, generally a nonpartisan office that isn't affected by primary elections and things of that nature. But so the example that I drew from here was from the summer of 2023. I was in Traverse City, and I helped petition for Green Party member Tom Mayer. He ran for the mayor of Traverse City, and we got sufficient signatures to have him placed on the ballot, and he won 36% of the vote. Did not quite achieve a victory, But Tom is a longstanding fixture in the Green Party and in his community. And so it was really great to help him make another run for office and to continue his organizing efforts in that area. And this is one of the more basic things that I would love to see more people doing, is stepping forward and offering to run for office and step into some of these elected positions. I think the figure from this most recent election was something close to 75% of elections in the United States were uncontested, non-competitive.
Wow.
So that's just so much opportunity to have, normal people with our common shared values step into roles of power and influence.
Do you have an idea why are these uncontested? 3 out of 4 offices in the United States, you're saying, in the last elections were uncontested.
Yeah, in my local area, for example, if we look at, I live in Ogemaw County, so there are 5 districts, and that means 5 county commissioner positions. County commissioner is a significant role of influence. You control a county's budget and its allocations and such. And you propose, you're the arbiter of millage proposals and new tax proposals and things of that nature. And here, incumbents, they seem to have influence. About 38% of people 38% of people here voted straight ticket Republican. So it's a little bit narrow. People don't think that they can win unless they're a Republican. And I think I can't completely explain for the unwillingness of people to step forward in these positions. In this county, we have the worst finances in the entire state of Michigan. So 83 counties, this is 83 out of 83. So really we're in some of the most dire straits financially of any county in the state of Michigan, but nevertheless, 4 out of 5 of these commissioners were not contested in their elections. The only contested candidate lost, and the other 4 were not contested. So I don't know, it's really pretty baffling to me, Wissam, because I can't think of a situation. We are 83 out of 83 counties, and number 82 is doing significantly better financially than this county. Mm-hmm. So I can't explain why. All I can explain is that no matter how badly your local politicians are doing, it's very likely that no one is offering to step in and do a better job. And you might start to think about taking that upon yourself.
Mm-hmm. So when in that example that you're showing, you said that to qualify a candidate for a non-partisan office, okay, a mayoral race is usually non-partisan, and is that a requirement for every person who's running for a mayor's office, is to have a petition, or is there another way to qualify?
There are other ways to qualify depending on the office. The Michigan elections website, michigan.gov/elections, will have resources that explain the different ways to qualify to be a candidate. Sometimes one can pay $100. Here, I'm pulling up the information now. I can tell you filing guides. Well, there's different rules for different roles, but in general, for a nonpartisan, it's complicated. There's different rules for all different levels of office. Sometimes there's a petition involved. Sometimes you can pay $100 and forego a petition. It really depends.
Does it change also from one city to another, or does the state set the rules?
The state sets the rules, although if I'm not mistaken, a local municipality can decide whether their elected body is to be partisan or not. I don't believe that's determined by the state.
Okay. But at any case, all the information is available on michigan.gov/elections.
Yeah.
Okay. How many signatures were required in that case for the mayoral race at the Traverse City, as an example? How many signatures were required?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I know that we collected enough signatures quite easily.
Are these forms available on some source and you print them out?
Yeah, they're very strictly controlled. Typically, if you want to launch a petition, you would want to visit a county clerk, a township clerk, a city clerk, and they should be able to give you fairly immediately the information that you need to qualify for any given office under their purview.
Mm-hmm.
Clerks will be your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So that was for candidates, typically for nonpartisan office, but petitions can do quite a lot more, even on a quite local level. So another thing a petition can do is change a law that's on the books. So if there's a law or even really an ordinance or something that's impacting your community, you don't have to appeal to lawmakers to change it. You can organize citizens, create a petition, and submit that petition to compel lawmakers to take action. So in the case of, I chose a local issue for me in my area as I was making this presentation. In the next county over, it's called Roscommon County. The residents there were having issues with their lake level. Many people who enjoyed recreating on Houghton Lake and waterfront property owners were dissatisfied with the lake level, and there were laws that prevented them from locally administering their lake level. So they gathered, I think in this case, if I'm not mistaken, it was 1,500 signatures. If you could go to the next slide, I think it's on the next slide. They gathered about 1,500 signatures and were in fact able, the board accepted 1,508 signed petitions to raise Houghton Lake legal lake level. And so this was just a very local, very kind of simple and straightforward issue. People said, look, we like our lake. It's too low. We don't understand why this law is stopping us from taking control of the environment in our own community.
Mm-hmm.
And so they took it on. I think it did not take a terribly long time for them to get this done, just a year or two. And so they were able to overcome a law that was preventing them from making changes in their community that everybody agreed they wanted. So
it was an artificial lake?
Yeah, it's a lake created by a dam.
Okay.
Of course, as the Green Party, we probably would be advocating for the removal of most of the dams in the state. Nevertheless, we do champion local autonomy as well. So those are kind of two values that are in a little bit of tension.
Right. As far as changing that law, what other paths there are to change a law. So there is a you can propose a motion, right, for the city council, for a city council member to propose a motion in their council, right? That's one way.
Well, in city council, they can determine local ordinances that are uh, strictly in effect within that municipality. The issue in this particular case was that there are state laws involved in adjusting water levels and managing dams. So yeah,
I just
they were
wonder.
taking it to another level. But yeah, if you had very direct access to a city councilor, you could have them make motions to establish ordinances and another locally effective policy.
So
Mm-hmm.
motions has to be placed by a city council member. It cannot be placed by a citizen.
Yes, that's accurate as far as I
And
understand.
as at the level of the state, who can make that change other than petitions? How could that change? How could another type of action change that law?
Well, typically you would need to go through the state house and the state senate to change laws at the state level. So one would need connections into Lansing politics to get those legislators to take action.
So typically, a citizen would call their state representative and asking them to motion for them to change the lake legal level. It seems that maybe that path was not available for those people, or it was not taken seriously by the state representative, and then they went to the path of petitioning.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a little while since I read the entire story. I don't recall if they had tried to appeal to their elected officials, but well, I mean, they appealed to their county commissioners.
Mm-hmm.
That was the route that they followed, and I suppose maybe they identified that there was a county level ordinance that was in fact the blocking legislation. So that's actually another important point of petitioning.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best example, the way that I've explained it here. Well, or maybe it's good that I was a little bit confused about county and state level authorities, because with these petitions, one should be careful and targeted about whom you're appealing to, either with the petition or with the law that one is seeking to change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
So the next, that was an example of people petitioning to appeal or amend an existing law. There was an existing law in Roscommon County that took away local control of lake levels. The next example is a little bit different. It would be to initiate a completely new law. So this is another option. A good example is marijuana in Michigan. So if you go to the next slide, this is kind of maybe the most recent major petition drive to establish a new law in Michigan. It's the most recent successful campaign that I can think of. And it took a coalition within Michigan that also had national backing. So another thing to consider is who you're going to appeal to with your petition and who you might think about soliciting support from. So in Michigan, it says the breakthrough means the coalition to regulate marijuana like alcohol remains on track to seek petition form approval from the Michigan Bureau of Elections in the near future. This is something that necessitates for a lot of these petition drives that outside support, is that petitions typically will employ legal language and technical legal language such that it's good to have a consultant that is knowledgeable of those terms when pursuing the establishment of a law or the changing of a law. So you can go to the next slide. So it was in 2017, about 6 or 7 years ago, that they proposed marijuana would be legalized for recreational uses, taxed at a rate of 16%. It's been an amazing revenue generator for every community that the commerce has been allowed in. The Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol then would have, so they had 100, okay, so here's a good example with numbers. They had 180 days to collect over 250,000 signatures. So they had 6 months and a target of 252,523 signatures. They come up with very specific numbers for these things, probably based on census data.
Mm-hmm.
Eligible voter numbers and a certain percentage threshold that must be reached. Next slide.
Now that seems a very large number to collect, and a tremendous effort. Are there companies, or how is that usually done? Is it through grassroots, or there are companies that are specialized in doing that, or is there specific training for that?
There are private companies that will run petition campaigns and petition drives. A lot of candidates in this most recent election got in trouble for petition fraud because a lot of those companies are not especially scrupulous, but they do exist and they serve a purpose. Yeah, 250,000 signatures is likely why these coalitions were relying on national organizations, national nonprofit organizations, presumably for the legalization and normalization of marijuana use.
Yeah, and so is there a law in the state constitution that defines these numbers, that defines the use of petition?
Indeed. I would say, based on a quick look at census facts, we've got a little over 10 million people in Michigan, which means 250,000 would be 2.5%, which rings true for a common sort of petitioning threshold to reach before you trigger a referendum.
Right. But that's also specifically from valid registered voters. So it's probably a percentage of registered voters rather than population.
Yeah. Right. Let's see if Michigan statewide petition threshold. Maybe the internet has a fast answer for us. Sponsoring a statewide initiative, referendum, petition. Indeed, here is a single stage process. Yeah. Well, once again, I suppose it's again complicated, where there's initiatives to amend the Constitution, referendum on legislation.
I guess a question that comes to mind is, if a state or a city or a county or does not have in their books a method to use petitions, is there an inherent right or a constitutional right to bring in petitions and have an influence of them?
Well, I'm not aware of any state that does not have a petition mechanism. I've not participated in state-based petition campaigns all over the United States, but I've just never heard of a state that doesn't have petition mechanisms. And I know our petition mechanisms, like I said, they're complicated because there's so many different types of petitions and so many different levels of government. And each kind of has a petition finely tuned to that case.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not aware of any state that simply blocks petitions or doesn't allow them.
Another question is about digital petitions. So do petitions have to be, I usually see people collecting signatures on the streets, ink and paper. Does it have to be that way? It can't be digital.
Well, no. Usually wouldn't be digital based on the requirements that the form be issued by the authoritative body, the municipal body. You'll have to obtain petition forms from the clerk in question. You submit ballot language to the government office, and then they produce the petitions and issue them to you, and then you have them signed. And then people need to be verifiably a resident of the area where the petition's relevant in the jurisdiction or the area where the petition is effective.
Verifiable by who? By the government?
By the voter registration.
So is it your responsibility if you're holding a petition on the corner and collecting signatures? It's not your responsibility, right? What a person puts on the form. You're just, people. I mean, you cannot check their IDs or something. So how does that work? I always wondered.
Yeah, I would have to review. I don't believe it spoils an entire petition page when somebody puts false information or the wrong person, somebody from out of town, somebody from another country signs your petition. They have no real legitimate business signing your petition. I don't think that spoils the entire petition sheet, but they will throw out that signature because somebody will be checking the signatures and verifying them against voter registration records.
Each one of them, or they pick random ones?
I think they do sampling. I don't think they have the resources to check every single signature on every single petition that comes.
Right. Does bad handwriting ruin an entry?
I think if it's illegible, they will often, if the person processing the petition, the clerk or the official, if they can't read it, that's often a reason that they will discard and not count a signature.
Do they give you a report after they do that? Like when they count the signature, do they tell you the actual accepted signatures?
I've not personally been on the receiving end of that report, but I do understand that they do tell you how many signatures, if you made the threshold and how many they counted for you.
Okay, let's go over this slide.
That was more details about the new law established in Michigan for marijuana. It was just details about the taxing. It was a 10% excise tax, a 6% sales tax. They split revenues, 35% going to K through 12 education, 35% to roads, 15% to communities that allow marijuana businesses, and 15% to counties where marijuana businesses are located. These are kind of the technical details and minutia of what these people were trying to accomplish with their petition. And it's another thing to think about is how comprehensive do you want to be with your goals, and what is it really going to take for you to launch a petition successfully that really achieves your goal?
I don't know. I would think that to keep it as simple as possible would be more, easier to accomplish than putting all these particulars where maybe people will differ more, or the politicians, they will have a harder time maneuvering around the petition, which makes them more hostile to it, maybe.
Certainly, I would favor, I mean, especially because we're grassroots and of fairly limited resources, I do favor very simple and straightforward petitions and very simple and straightforward goals. This particular example, it was a statewide law with national backing and with narcotics. So it was a very complicated and contentious legal drafting process.
So since this was accepted, is this the actual split of the revenue today?
Yes.
And can government or legislative bodies amend these, after they have been entered by a petition?
I have heard of legislators amending laws after they've been passed by referenda. I don't believe there were significant amendments by legislators to this particular law.
It is possible. So it's not final. What the petition provides is not necessarily the final version. Yeah.
It's an unfortunate reality.
Yeah, which brings you back to square one sometimes, if that's the case.
But so yeah, this coalition to regulate marijuana like alcohol managed to get 360,000 petition signatures, and so I don't remember how many. I don't know how many of those they validated. But if you go to the next slide,
they'll get 100,000 of them just at the bash in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. I know. I attended those while I went to university. So our marijuana legislation back in 2018 passed 56% of the vote, fairly good majority, 50 of 83 counties. The highest percentage of yes voters were there in Ann Arbor.
So the petition
68%.
The petition was to put it on the ballot, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was the petition. The petition was to put it on the ballot, not to add the law, right?
Correct. That's another thing that we'll review later in this presentation, is the way that some of the most successful petitions were never turned into law, and many petitions that failed eventually were turned into law regardless. So there's not a one-to-one relationship between these petitions and the laws that we want to see passed. It's a more grassroots and bottom-up way to propose legislation and get it out there, but it's not foolproof.
So there's 50 counties that approved this. Did this vote made it legal in the whole state, or only in the counties that approved it?
The whole state.
The whole state. All right, so they went by majority of voters.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so another example, a different sort of petition, is, let's say our fine legislators in Lansing pass a law and we don't like it. We can do a referendum vote on a newly enacted law. So next slide. I found a recent, well, actually, I looked at a potential, I thought, for an upcoming law that I'm concerned will pass and that I think we should organize. Potentially, this would be a petition that I would want to organize because I'm very personally affected by housing insecurity. I find it hard to afford housing. I'm severely cost burdened by housing as defined by the federal housing and urban development metrics. I think they advise 30% of
Your
income or less go to housing, and I think I'm paying close to 50% of my income to housing and utilities.
Yeah. And so is
One of
and so are a large percentage of the population.
right. One of the exacerbating factors for the housing crisis are short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs. And I've been studying this problem all over the country, moving around. I've been studying it for a long time. I don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all approach to regulating Airbnbs or short-term rentals. But I do know that the proposed law, House Bill number 5438 in Michigan, this has been in the legislature for quite a long time, circulating around. And I've been hearing local officials talk about it for about 2 years. The proposal is to put all of the power to regulate short-term rentals in Lansing. That local units of government, counties, townships, cities, the language here before us is a local unit of government shall not enact or enforce any ordinance, rule, or regulation that has the effect of totally banning or prohibiting short-term rentals. Why? Why can't we ban short-term rentals from our neighborhoods?
Yeah, I'm assuming that a smaller government unit would be more knowledgeable about the circumstances of that small, whatever neighborhood. Or
Sure. Yeah.
I don't understand how Lansing will be more effective in regulating that.
I don't either. I can't really imagine the interests behind this, the lobbying behind this. It seems, obvious.
Right. I mean, the third party rentals are now part of the formulas for new housing prices, and it has a very strong effect, and in some cities more than others, on the pricing and availability of rentals, and even on the price of housing, even on mortgages. Now they're inserting that into mortgage agreements, and it's changing the housing market altogether.
Yeah, so this was something that I was thinking about getting ahead of and just preparing to launch a petition drive to get this changed if they manage to pass it. I think we should all be ready to organize around that.
So if what you mean by the petition is basically to put it on the ballot for a referendum, right? So the petition to put it on the ballot, right?
Well, it's the petition to change a recently passed law. So it's another slight variation. Petition to amend past law. It's another slight variation. And so Feel all right to amend. So there's a 65-page document with all the particulars about all these different kinds of, it's called a petition manual. So if I can quickly.
If you can share the link in the private chat, and I'll share it with the audience.
Okay, I'll try that. Because, yeah, I do have this basic presentation prepared about like a really broad notion of what petitions are and the different basic forms of petitions. But you have challenged me significantly here to come up with a lot of
Sorry
these
for all these
details.
hard questions. It's okay. You don't have to have the answers, Doug. As long as we are just, you're showing the way to answer these questions.
Urged me to be better prepared for the next.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard me,
I
but
do one of these.
can you hear me?
Yeah, did I lose you? I just got the resource into the chat.
Yeah, so I was saying that I know that my questions are hard, and they're probably for for more of the clerk of the state of Michigan, but as long as you are you're answering from your experience, and you're also showing us how to find the answers, because these get really complicated, and nobody will know all the answers anyway. All right, this next slide.
Yeah, this is
your proposal. Okay.
Proposal that this would be an opportunity for us to engage directly in this process to amend a law should it be passed. And yes, I haven't done all of the homework to know 100% the process for doing so. But again, also, this is kind of conversation starters and invitations to people to, suggest what they would like to work toward,
Mm-hmm.
and then to see which one of these types of petition might be appropriate, and then to really dig in from there.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So the last legal type petition, the last petition with legislative force, is a petition to amend the state constitution. And so we could look for, I think Governor Whitmer did a executive order to protect reproductive health. I think there was also a petition drive forming around a similar issue to protect reproductive health, and that would be one of those constitution level changes, which I really didn't do a lot of research on this, because this is out of my wheelhouse. It's beyond my immediate ambitions, beyond my immediate political ambitions. I think it would be even more difficult than a statewide law. It would be more difficult than introducing a new law or amending an existing law. It would be taking the foundational document of the government of Michigan and making an alteration to it.
Mm-hmm.
So really, we'd be reserving this for top level issues like reproductive freedom or religious freedom or free speech, threats to those. I don't know. Some other petitions that I'm interested in pursuing would be around the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain if the correct angle of attack would be amending laws or introducing new laws or enshrining transparency somehow into the Constitution. That would be an interesting discussion to have with someone who knows
Right.
a little bit more and has more experience in maybe all three of those avenues.
So I just did some research, and it says to propose an amendment to the Michigan Constitution through a citizen-initiated petition, signatures from registered electors equal to at least 10% of the total votes cast for all gubernatorial candidates in the most recent general elections are required. For instance, in 2022 general election, approximately 4.3 million votes were cast for governor. Therefore, a petition to amend the Constitution would need around 430,000 valid signatures. It's important to note.
So yeah, you're also looking at the highest the highest number of votes or signatures rather that you would need to get.
Right. And petitions must be filed at least 120 days before the election in which the proposed amendment is to be voted for.
Oh, and as I'm looking at my slide, I guess if you back up to that slide, it is a let's see, November 8, 2022 general election placed on the ballot by initiative petition. So it would seem, I think I signed that petition in 2021. I signed it. I did. I know I did. I can remember where I was when I did it. I was in Traverse City, Michigan, at a park off of, yeah, I was at a park in Traverse City, and I signed this petition, and it did make it to the ballot in 2022. I don't recall if it passed. Why don't we go a couple slides ahead and just talk about, I don't think it did. So petitions. Okay, so before we get to just how effective those petitions are, I don't think the ballot measure to protect reproductive freedom passed once it made it onto the ballot. I think we got it onto the ballot and then it failed. But before we talk about whether things we get on the ballot pass or fail, why don't we just talk about a petition as a message, which I think has some value. So for instance, I signed a petition, I think it was this morning, demanding the release of the Palestinian American journalist who was detained in Switzerland recently. I don't recall his name offhand. He was I think he was very involved with the Electronic Intifada organization.
Yes, and he was jailed in Switzerland, yeah.
He was released and deported, I found out. Or I mean, I guess he was just deported. I don't know that counts as released.
I'm going to share on the screen that petition. One of them, I'm sure there is several ones. Journalist Ali Abu Nemia.
Yeah, I signed that petition this morning. And so we could think about, what did they do? They deported him. What did the Swiss government have to do because of this petition? Kind of nothing. 100 million people might sign this petition. I don't know that doesn't require Switzerland to do anything. But it does send a pretty clear message if you can get how many signatures does it have now? So
it has let me get back. It has 18,313 verified signatures. So
you can think like if 20,000 people sign a thing in 36 hours, perhaps the Swiss government begins to think that they have made some kind of mistake or are going to encounter a problem based on popular discontent. But if they're anything like the United States, maybe they don't care so much. So I think it's worth just thinking about. Oh, there's the train.
Mm-hmm.
I live very close to the train tracks.
Yeah. So yeah, this is an absurd, really, action by the Swiss government,
Yeah.
especially Switzerland being a neutral country. Um, and
I
him,
never. Did you ever see any statement from the Swiss government? I haven't found one in the coverage.
yeah, I haven't. But
I don't
we,
understand. I don't understand why they did what they did.
yeah, we live in a jungle where most of the international laws are being ignored or, um, defied. Our president here just sent or approved the 2,000-pound bombs shipment to Israel, although that's against American law and international law for someone who's been accused of war crimes and been charged by the ICC.
Aren't
Um,
they actively violating the ceasefire in southern Lebanon
they've
and
they
withdrawal? They were supposed to withdraw from southern Lebanon, and I'm seeing footage of soldiers.
they violated the ceasefire in Lebanon about over 300 times, and they've murdered people during that time. They've erased villages. They've systematically put dynamites in houses and destroyed them. And if they are running through a village real fast and they don't have time to dynamite the houses, then they would burn them. They've destroyed over 120,000 hectares of farmland. They've burned thousands, about I think 1,200 hectares of forest. They use phosphorus systematically. They steal old olive trees. They have trucks that come and they pluck them from the roots and they send them to occupied Palestine. Just systematic, really, terrorism. I don't find another word to call this. And now, after the ceasefire has been done, and over 200 violations, no violation of the ceasefire from the Lebanese side, they refused to leave from most of the areas that they're in, and they've promised and agreed to leave. And people walked into their villages defying both Israeli army and Lebanese army, and there is 24 deaths, over 100 injuries in the last 24 hours. And there are a large number of villages that are still occupied, and they've extended their presence till 18th, I think. I'm not sure, February 18th or March 18th. Yeah, it's all
Awful.
it's just we are in a different stage in world history where nothing matters. There's no rules. you know it's just, it's just a jungle. And it's just a big retraction of human rights. And everything that the civilized world has established, it seems to be a joke.
Aye. Well, I guess the only response can be to, I don't know. I'm trying to just be more and more effective organizing locally and building bridges in my community, because that'll be the source of power. Like, I don't have
Right.
any
And
other
you've done your
solution but
part.
that.
And talking about that, Doug, before we let you go, in the last minute, really, we're hoping not to go over an hour by much, but I wanted to stop by the fact that you actually is one, you are one of the citizens who have done more than what they could to create change, up to running for a state senate in the state of Michigan, and you was on the ballot every Michigander voter have seen your name on their ballot, and actually over 50,000 people have voted for you. You have the
Over
exact
54,000.
54,000 Michiganders have given you their vote to become the next senator in the Congress. And I know how much this has a toll on you and your family to run, especially through the Green Party, especially with a grassroots movement with no corporate money or corporate finance or lobbyists or super PACs. So can you talk a little bit more about this experience and in a few minutes just record your witness to history and share it with all the Michiganders and with us here in Dearborn about your experience running for the Senate. Of course, 54,000 votes is a big inspiration. So let's inspire others.
Yeah, I was very pleased with that result. Just to really fast conclude my thoughts on petitions, we saw petitions from very small to global scale. There's a lot of choices and a lot of flexibility. And if you want to just go to the very last slide. I talked a little bit about how sometimes petitions don't turn into laws and sometimes petitions fail and we can still get the law through. But really, what excites me the most about petitions is the way that we can use it to be an organizing tool, a thing that we can go out into the community with to start conversations, a thing that we can use to identify people who might be allies in our fight, who might be potential party members. And additionally, they're simply a tool that can help us gather information about those people, their names, their phone numbers, their contact information. So I think petitions can be a really powerful tool if they're used correctly, and I will be exploring their use more in the future. As it goes to my United States Senate run, it was always to be a long shot. When I reached out to the Green Party, it was April 2023, well before the campaigns had really gotten serious. At that time, the Democrat frontrunner was Alyssa Slotkin. Quick research into Slotkin revealed that she deployed to Afghanistan with the CIA in 2003. And I was about 19 or so in 2003. I was very aware of what the United States government had been doing, was beginning to do in Iraq. I knew it was an illegitimate invasion. I knew it was an unjust war. It was a war for oil. It was a continuation of Bush Sr.'s policies and projects in the Middle East, and really a continuation of the Kissinger project to destabilize the Middle East and completely subjugate it to United States interests. So for this person, Slotkin, who deployed to Afghanistan in 2003 and worked with the CIA for 17 years, I can't prove it, but I assume that Slotkin was a part of terrible crimes against the Afghan people. She raised $40 million in her campaign. Early on, it looked like the son of the wealthiest man in Michigan by the name of Meyer. Hank Meyer's the richest man. His son is Peter. He was the front runner for the Republicans for a little while until Mike Rogers, kind of another scummy Republican, ended up winning the primary. So there's just tens of millions of dollars flying around in this race. And then there was me, regular guy, small town community newspaper writer. And I was making many trips to the Metro Detroit area and other parts of Michigan, looking for support, really just looking for people to join the Green Party, people to vote for the Green Party, people to run for office, because obviously $3,000 doesn't get you on as many TV screens or billboards as $40 million does. So we knew it was a long shot, but I think it's important that the Green Party puts a candidate on every single line of every single ballot in the state of Michigan. And for my part, I'm not able to run in local elections because I cover them for the newspaper and it's part of my profession. It's a matter of professional ethics. I will not run in races that I might have to cover for a newspaper. So I went for that US Senate position just to put a name up at the top of the ballot, but we really got to focus on getting a name on every line of every ballot. And that's what I want to inspire people to do, is just to volunteer to do the job and take on the work. We're suffering as much for a lack of volunteers to do this vital work, perhaps more than I ever really thought. We perceive enemies and people who keep us out of power, but sometimes it's just a matter of becoming willing to step forward and do what needs to be done.
Did you anticipate getting this much votes in Michigan? You got 54,000 votes. What did that tell you?
It was a big improvement on the last contest, a similar contest. The last time a member of the Green Party ran for the US Senate, they did not get as many votes or as high a percentage. The Libertarian Party has deep roots in Michigan and a lot of support, and I was very pleased to get about the same number of votes as the Libertarian candidate, which is also a major improvement on previous Green Party performances. And I think that the Green Party is at this stage vying for the third largest political party in the country. The Libertarian Party has been that party for a few years, but the Green Party, I think, has a real shot to overtake them. And I think our contest in Michigan, I think that Dearborn was a great laboratory. And I think my race was also emblematic of a growth of the Green Party, a new growth and a new beginning to a party that's, as Jill Stein liked to point out, it's the strongest and longest running independent third party that we've got. So yeah, I think things are growing and taking off, and I want more people to get involved and share our values and help us improve these conditions that should really concern us all.
Right. Doug, a couple of questions. First, what's the message for the people who are thinking of running or are intimidated by running for any office? What's your message to them?
My message, if you want to run for office, please do. Don't let your doubts stop you. And if you feel intimidated to run for office, I would encourage you to look at imposter syndrome and look at the people who are doing, go to your meetings, go to city council meetings, observe a little bit. I think you'll find that the people who are on planning commissions and the people who are on zoning boards, people who are on city councils even, are really just your friends and neighbors. And there's nothing special about them or the job that they're doing. We're all just people who are living together. And sometimes I think we all need to take turns at reviewing the rules that we live under. The same way that I think we should all take turns collecting the garbage. I don't think that a person should be a garbage man every day. I think we should all take turns doing that. And I don't think that somebody should be a county commissioner for their whole life. I think we should take turns doing that. And everybody should have a turn in the seats of power, because we're all basically the same.
And the second question, Doug, is: are you planning to run in the next elections? Have you given it any thought?
Yeah, I've given it some thought. Right now, I've started a little ad campaign. I put some Green Party ads in the newspaper encouraging people in my area to reach out. I used the last of my campaign funds. I donated some to the Green Party, and I used the rest to run ads for a couple of weeks to try to get some outreach and connect with some people. That'll be my top priority. The next United States Senate race will be in 2026, and I will consider running for that office if the Green Party of Michigan wants to nominate me for it and encourages me to do it. Otherwise, I'm really quite happy. You know, people say that running multiple times helps build name recognition and support over time. And so I'm willing to do it again, but I'm also willing to support another candidate who wants to run for the same office. I believe in replaceability. I don't think that I'm specially qualified to run for the United States Senate or to lead the Green Party. I want to lead together.
What is the website for the Michigan Green Party so we can share it with the audience?
It is migreenparty.org.
And for those who are interested in joining the Green Party, they can go to this website and they can basically click on join, and it's as simple as that. With that, we come to an end of our live discussions program. Thank you, Mr. Douglas Marsh, for being with us today, talking about the power of petitioning. Hopefully, we'll have more Green Party candidates and the voice of Green Party here on Dearborn Blog, because the city of Dearborn, by 22.8%, voted for the Green Party. So 1 out of 4 people, 1 out of 4 voters in Michigan, in Dearborn, voted for the Green Party, and that's why we should have more representation in our programs in the city. Elliot Carter proudly voted for Marsh and Tlaib in the last election. Hello from the up the road in Southfield. Thank you, Elliot, for your comment. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doug, again. Greetings to the family.
I just wanted to say too, if there are Green Party members watching this stream, please come to our state membership meeting February 8th, Saturday, February 8th, around 11 a.m. Please come and help us elect new officers to the state party.
Is it in a location or on Zoom?
That's a Zoom. You can register at migreenparty.org. It'll be under, well, it's right at the top of the page under upcoming events, state membership meeting.
Great. Thank you, and have a good night, everyone.